welcome everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Paul. You know, just about 1 month ago, we did a show with one of my very, very favorite people, creative business and performance coach, Lindsay Davis. For those interested, it's sort of a precursor to this show. It was show number 238, and it was on the very important subject of detachment, which is all about how to emotionally detach from stress-inducing situations. I loved that show. Lindsay has so many good ideas. Now, as we neared the end of the episode, we realized that a follow-up session might be very helpful and offer clarity on a subject that is very dear to all of us, and that is, how do we discover our purpose in life? Now, this is a tricky question because as I was pondering it, seems to me there are at least, if not dozens more, but there are two high categories of purposes. One is that general purpose of being a human being, simply being a good person, with strong values, engaging relationships, caring, compassion, kindness. That is a purpose in life. That is a significant purpose in life. But there's a second purpose that is frequently much more difficult to discover, and that is, what is your personal purpose? Is there even such a thing that you have a personal purpose in life? And that's what we're going to talk about today with Lindsay Davis, who has most helpful thoughts on how to discover, the way we put it, clues to making your life meaningful and memorable. With that, let's bring on Lindsay. Lindsay Davis, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. It's really good to be back and continuing this part 2. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Oh, good. I am, this is one of those shows that I am more curious discoverer than I am offerer of any kind of wisdom. You are our source today.
Well, I'm humbled by that, and I look at it as a joint exploration because you also have so much wisdom and experience to offer.
You're always so kind.
So we'll play a duet.
Okay, we'll play a duet. John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Two different instruments. So, I've been looking at my notes here, and it occurred to me that I am interested in this show today because so many people, I feel, are feeling lost, and especially younger people, lost with regarding purpose and passion and personal meaning in life. They're searching so many jobs, so involved with online activities, and don't have opportunity for solitude and reflection, and wondering what they need to do or what difference they can possibly make in such a corrupted and chaotic world. Do you find that to be true as well?
I definitely have found that, broad brush, many people seem to be struggling with a disconnect. Their own personal answers to those questions. Who am I? What's important to me? Why am I here? And I feel that maybe they've never given themselves the opportunity to sit with those big questions and really contemplate. And in that void of not asking themselves, it seems like the busyness of the world, our own conditioning, what we see around us, those answers are just fed in a default mode. And then at different places in people's life, be it when they're young, be it when they turn 30, maybe around midlife or the end of a career, they're just left with this sense of like, well, is this all there is? What's next? Do you think this by any chance? Do you think by any chance this is a
a Western ideal, that it's more American than it would be South American or Asian, even Persia? Do you think this has to do with our big drive for the American dream to be this, all of us can be this superhero? Do you think it's something that's more Western than it is international, or do you think the same issue goes on in other cultures?
That's such a great question. I can only speak from my own lens as a Western individual. I'm going to assume that it is a Western concept and value to idolize the individual,
right?
And versus what the collective, what would benefit the collective. But I think to your point around, like, is it just a Western ideal to want to be this superhero? I think that's one expression of finding purpose. Like, what would make me feel special or my life feel worth it? I find like that's the first level. We might even call that like an egoic level.
Right.
From that fundamental perspective internally, like, I'm not enough. I'm not valuable simply as is. But I think in the discovery or the conversation around purpose, there's even a deeper opportunity below that level of ego, where what if your unique combination of wisdom and skills and perspective can not only give you meaning and a deeper meaning, but also deeply benefit the collective? And I'm not sure that would be strictly a Western.
Yeah. There was, I don't know where I think maybe I used the quote in a blog. I saw it on a company billboard one time driving on the 55 freeway, and it had to be 30 years ago, and it has never left my mind. And the quote was, "You are unique, just like everybody else." And I love that because that is the collective idea, is it not? It is bringing all of these independent, unique thinkers into one essence that can contribute to the value of the world. Now, I gotta tell you, everybody knows when I was a kid I was a hippie, and so I went to college in the '60s, and we just came off of it. May be the 1950s, could be the height, the golden age of America. I don't know. It was where all the businesses were succeeding, the middle class was rising like crazy. There were wonderful things that was going on in the country, and yet during that time, it was tainted by Cold War, civil rights, Vietnam War, distrust in the general governmental leadership. And I recall a phrase that we used to use because we realized we didn't fit in that world, but we didn't know what world we fit in. And so, it was a phrase that was used. Maybe you've heard this. Have you ever heard the phrase, "I'm just trying to find myself"? Mm-hmm. And just say, "Are you lost?" What? Yeah, but not physically. And I remember even responding to that to somebody, just said, what are you doing? And after saying it, I felt like an idiot, saying I'm trying to find myself. And I kind of looked around and it saw me and thought that was silly. But those were the thoughts that was happening at that generation. There was a generational upheaval that was endorsed by the youth. My question is, do you think that sort of thing is going on in our society today, that with the world chaos and our political and social upheavals that we have, not only in America but in the entire world, do you think these questions have anything to do with people trying to find purpose and meaning in their life?
I'm sure it is related. And you think about the people who were young adults in the 60s and 70s, and then their children, and now their children. the effect that finding yourself, or that you have your life has to have a deeper meaning or purpose, just being passed down through each generation. And so I'm sure it is related. And I think as much as that we see the unrest globally, I also can see such an opportunity, like probably the greatest freedom we have ever experienced, to innovate and to bring all of ourselves and all of our genius into creating something that benefits the collective, and to create calm where there's chaos, even if it's in our corner of the world, or to live out our particular values in service to, the highest good for ourselves or others.
And that could be a personal mission, could it not? Is to try to be that kind of person that influences others, so we have a more cooperative behaviors, but with a singular goal of that we want to honor cultures. America's a bit individual, and I'm right in the midst of it. But I'm realizing as I go to Europe, it's very culturally oriented, not just individuals. That there's a whole movement toward cultures that are very important. I'm looking at my questions, and I have no idea. I have them in the order, but I don't know this is the order I want to ask them. You would think I'd be more prepared, but let me ask you. What's that?
I like improv music, so you're safe.
Okay, I know. A classical viola player liking innovative music. That's fun. Let's talk about this. Do you think there's a spiritual element to this? To this looking for meaning?
I personally do. So, and I hold space that people can also see it differently. I choose to have that perspective, and I find that gives me a deeper sense of connection, a deeper sense of faith, a deeper sense of directionality. And so that's my personal belief. How about you?
Yeah, I think we share that, and I think we share mutually that our mother tongue happens to be Christianity and the Christ, but that does not mean we don't give credence to the Sufis, of the Muslims and the Jewish and the Kabbalah, and to Zen Buddhism, that they are all searching for the same godness. There's this spirituality that is missing in it, and it's not necessarily. When we think of spirituality today in the United States, we think of either Protestant America or Roman Catholic America that are very dogmatic, rule-oriented. It is you perform, and then God will do nice things for you, but only after you perform certain acts. And those, I think as we talked earlier, I find those to be heresy. I find those to be truly against biblical literature. Biblical literature is not that we perform and God responds, is that God performs and we respond with acceptance, surrender, and love. And we don't respond by doing all of these, not dancing and not drinking and not doing, everybody's goal in life. I know one fundamentalist minister told me he finally heard all the things he wasn't supposed to do, and he realized those are all my goals in life. And so it was difficult for me to stay in the tradition. But when we talk about a spiritual element, what would you think that would entail? What would that mean?
Great question.
I knew you wouldn't be ready for that one. I shocked you.
Yeah, you threw me. So I'm really thinking. But if it's related to how you just framed it, like God moves and we respond, and the topic of purpose is really about learning to listen. And I don't really mean like listen audibly, like physically with our ears, but learning to be with not knowing, to learning to be with the mystery of the unknown, and to be sensitive to the subtle signals of not just what we want to create, but what wants created through us, like what wants expressed through our unique voice and lens. And I think that does require a faith that there is a through current or a through thread or a universal, all there is, like beneficial force, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, it seems to me. Well, let me go to, I'd read to you before that in T.S. Eliot's 4 poems, 4 quartets, and there's one poem called East Coker, and that's his very famous poem. And East Coker happened to be a church, which I found out later. I didn't know at the time. But T.S. Eliot writes this: to arrive at where you want to get to, you must go by a way wherein there is no ecstasy. In order to arrive at what you do not know, you must go by a way which there is of the way of ignorance. And you must go by a way of seeking possessions through non-possessions. And I get what Eliot is trying to say here to me is paying attention, because if we have the knowledge, then we know what we're trying to do. There is admitting a sense of ignorance and surrender to some outside source or to some new source that we haven't paid attention to. I think paying attention, and I put it somewhere in my notes, but I remember writing it. It's almost an oblique attention, is that you're paying attention without paying attention. If you're paying attention very intentionally, then you're looking for answers. But if you're doing it obliquely, you're paying attention with the back of your mind. It's not a front burner, it's a back burner, but then something clicks and you go, oh my goodness, and it gets set up to the front burner. Did any of all of my rambling make any sense?
Oh, yeah, I'm tracking with you. And in fact, there's a really fun way for this front burner back brain feeling like, so if we look at it as focus and then awareness, like a sensitivity to what's happening and the environment and the clues, you have like a front focus, which is like pick a spot on your wall in front of you and really squint and like examine that spot, and you'll notice that your awareness to the subtleties around you in the room or the environment fade. You don't even see them anymore. But if you soften that focus, you're still paying attention, but you're like paying attention with your whole body, like a receiver dish. And then you're picking up on all sorts of nuance and movement in your environment or your room that you may not have seen in that hyper focus. And so I've found when people are really intently searching for whether it's a next chapter kind of purpose or their overarching like life theme purpose, in their sincerity, it's easy to try too hard to really think and really figure it out. And it becomes like this endless mind-numbing, like, obsession. And when we learn to soften into the periphery, and I mean, it's really like a body softening, like softening our gaze, our ears, and follow some like subtleties in the environment, this picture starts to emerge that's like, oh, in a way, we've always known this is my purpose. I've always known this is what is meaningful to me. And we come, like T.S. Eliot, we come that full circle, like through the gate of ignorance, like not knowing. I mean, in that quote, I love that quote. When you shared it with me, I went and looked it up, and it was like, for me, where he talks about, we must go by a way wherein there is no ecstasy. It's almost like devoting to the mundane, or like that mastery path, like just do the next thing that occurs to you, or follow the next thread that occurs to you. And there isn't like always just this aha lightning bolt in that moment. But then, as you arrive, what you do not know, you must go by a way, which is the way of ignorance. And that's that, like you said, that open, like unknown, like that open paying attention.
Yeah, there is a paying attention. There are moments where I can't speak for everybody, but there are moments when my heart goes pitter patter, or something deep has happened inside of me, and I have learned not to just pass on, but to stop whatever I'm doing and consider it. I had a time with my my executive coach with Kameen Samuel a week or so ago, and we were going through some of my intents on this book that I want to write, some of my intentions, and the overall goals Lindsay became so clear to me that this right now, writing this text is my purpose in life, and it is not the writing of the text, but it is the content of the text in need of a hungry. There's a passage in Amos that I quote in my own language, and Amos is called a minor prophet. He's one of the fewer pages, 6 or 7 page prophets in the Old Testament, and he writes, "In that day, people will be so hungry for words of God, they won't even know what they're hungry for." And if we believe in a divine and a creator and in something that is intricately involved and intimate with this world, but at the same time otherworldly, we're longing for words, but we don't know we're longing for these words. We just know there is something missing. And I think many of us, and even religious people, so I'm not saying spirituality is the answer, the only answer, even us in spirituality often are asking, what am I here for? What am I doing? What is my purpose? You talked last time about clues that lead us to purpose. There are some things that there is the way of ignorance, but there is also a way of intentionality of saying, here are 4 or 5 hooks I can hang my clothes on. What kind of hooks would you say, question sort of hooks that you would ask people that would help lead them to their purpose?
Yeah, I think one you mentioned, which is learning to pay attention to those times where your heart, as you said, goes pitter-patter, your energy rises, or you just start like lighting up. And, and I think the next place where I go with my people is understanding that doing, although we usually want to say, what am I doing with my life? What's my purpose to do? The first level is being. And so doing flows from our state of being. And so, the first place to look at is, regardless of activity or job or creative project, what are your current values that you're living into, that you want to align with or you want to deeply express next? And I like this to be an evolving list so that we can keep the list short. Of course, we can come up with like 50 values.
Right.
But what specifically are like the one or two that just keep coming up for you that are important? And then how do you want to be a living expression and commitment of those? And so I think that gives an opportunity to infuse deeper meaning and energy into your current project or your current job and really come from a deeper place. But it also then allows you the freedom to say, so is the activities that I'm doing, is the career I'm doing, is that the best expression of those values, or am I allowed to do something else now?
I've heard this very frequently, as I'm sure many of our listeners have, that the importance of being over doing. Do you have any examples, or can you clarify what being means as opposed? I can get doing, my activities, but what is being? Is it my values, or is there more to it than that?
I think it's the intentional values, and then your attention and commitment to living them or expressing them. But I think of I think the level of being, I think of that as our current consciousness or even self-concept. And so a great example of doing is if you were, for example, writing your book, but your self-concept was there's a million other books and I'm no writer, and I'm going to do it because I said I would do it. Just notice the effect that would have on your writing process. So your perspective of self-concept and the concept of the project, like your consciousness vantage point, engages in those actions very differently and has a very profound impact on the effectiveness or the results of those actions. And then where you're coming from now, right, is your consciousness of this is the book that's needed. This is the deeper hunger for seekers. This is the thing that is meant to come through me. And you can have a real humility in that, but also your consciousness, the concept of yourself and your role as a conduit. And then I'm going to be the writer of this. Then when you take those actions, you've really transformed them from just mundane doing, going through the actions, doing the thing and hoping to get over with, to almost like what I say with my clients is making it sacred. Like making that expression of your values and your consciousness sacred rather than unconscious.
You sent me an excerpt from the new journal you're writing, and you are writing a series of affirmations. Now, we went through the affirmation period of, writing little stickers on our mirrors, and I tried one that said "I am tall," and it never worked. I stayed as short as ever. I'm not going to grow 6 inches from that. But you have. Was it you or is it somebody else that has that? Did I just confuse you with somebody else?
You did, but stay tuned. Spoiler alert for, I think, a soon upcoming show with the identity.
Yeah, with Stephanie Allen.
Affirmations, if you'd like.
Yeah, but let's just talk a bit about affirmations, because if we tell ourselves and continually I have 3 affirmations for me. I mean, I have more than that, but I have 3 values that run my life: freedom, kindness, and peace. And if I were to tell myself that daily, I am free, I am kind, I am always in search of and an active participant in peace, I think that would make a difference. I think telling myself that every day rather than just have it sort of be a latent value within me. Do you think there's something important in saying that, in telling that?
I do, because your energy can get behind it. I think where affirmations or like the positive thinking movement went, in my opinion, awry, is when they weren't tied to something like you actually could get behind in your energy, like actually embody. So it just felt like gaslighting yourself or lying. And your mind is so smart that if you said, for example, I am the greatest writer who has ever existed, and you just wanted to repeat that over and over and over and over, it would be actually counterproductive, because your mind would already say, not true. And it would just, in the void of like knowing that's untrue, it would be like, you're not a writer. And so, but the difference is, I have a voice, I am a writer. Maybe that's where your energy can get behind, or some of your values. Like if we use peace, like I am always a source of peace. You're going to find, like, your mind will find examples where you weren't that.
Oh my goodness.
Like, no, you're not.
Tell me. Yeah.
But if you say, I am, how I want to say it exactly how you said it. I am a seeker, or I'm always in search of peace, or being a conduit of peace. How did you say it, Charlie?
Something like that. Geez, asking me to remember what I said. No. You forget how old I am.
But you get the idea. Like, it has to be something, like the language, the words you choose matters, because if your body already knows, like, nope, definitely not true, then continuing to repeat it over and over just becomes like a weird, obsessive, like, tick or habit. And it tends to be really counterproductive. And so because of one of my values is truth, I'm also a commitment to telling the truth to yourself. And so if we can use an affirmation, be it an I am or an I am committed, and be precise to where it actually lights us up inside. Like, we can really live into that, like, starting today. I think that's where the shift can occur.
And it's also telling the truth to somebody, and maybe it's not the same person for every truth, but to share that truth. A problem shared is a problem halved. I now realize it's a popular quote, but I just first read it reading John O'Donoghue while I was in Lisbon, and I love that idea that a problem shared is a problem halved, because you have other resources. And I have a mentor who, it was in a Christian environment, and he had some activities that caused him to have to resign from the ministry. And there's this passage in a book in the Bible it's written by an apostle named James. And he says this, so readers bear with me. In the biblical language, it says, confess your sins to one another, brothers and sisters, in order that you may be healed. It's sort of like, this is the vehicle for healing. And my friend, my mentor, told me, Charlie, you've got to know that confession blocks the blackmail of Satan. Confession blocks the blackmail of the ego, of that protective, protective sort of judging entity within ourselves. And when we share that with someone else, that blocks that, because they're able to tell us right away, you're not the only one that's done that. You're not the only one that's thought that way. That, it is very human to think that way, and I think there's something really beautiful to that act, that in sharing what we're looking for and what we think are roadblocks can help undo the roadblock. Now, what I want to do is, we're coming to the end of the show that I always warn us 15 minutes ahead of time, but I want to be tangible, Lindsay, and I wrote some things, and I want to think. I'm thinking of people that are saying, Charlie, I get what you're saying, but you guys are talking awfully esoteric, and you're talking about philosophies of it. I get the philosophies, I agree, but tell me, what can I do? And I wrote down 3 or 4 things. Tell me what you think about them.
Perfect.
That if you think about what your purpose is, first, what do you love to do? I love to do something. What are you skilled at? They can be different things. What you love to do and what you're skilled at is a different thing. And you know what you're skilled at? I'm going to have to do an aside. I just learned this from Mark Samuel, Kameen's husband. And we were talking about people that are really, really good at something, don't realize they're skilled at it, because they say, oh, that's easy. That's not that hard to do. Anybody can write. Anybody can play viola. You just jump through the hoops, and you do your practice, and you're playing, you'll be concert ready. Well, there is a natural skill that's involved in that. And so anytime you say anyone can do that, that is a sign that you were especially skilled at something. Isn't that
That's a good one.
Isn't that an odd thought? Mark brought that up.
It's so true. Yeah, it's like the water to a fish.
Precisely.
Yeah, can't describe the water, they're in it.
Yeah, and swimming, anybody can do that, and that's not true. So what do you love to do? What are you skilled at? What brings you great joy? When you do something, you feel this inner sense of, I've accomplished something meaningful. And my 4th one is, what are you proud of in your life? And I fear there's too many people that are not proud of things in their life, that they need to go to affirmation class to find out what they need to be proud of, because I want to say everybody brings something to the table that is valuable and deep and meaningful. But do you think if you ask those questions, that begins to give you an idea of what your purpose is? Because it is that authentic you. It's not asking, what did your parents tell you to do? What did your educators or your bosses or your spouses or other people tell you what to do? It is all about this inner core of you, and your purpose is about your inner core.
Yeah, I like those 4 lenses. And what do you love to do? Some of those clues can be in childhood, before a lot of the conditioning of culture got a hold of you.
Great insight.
Yeah, going back to when you just lost track of time as a kiddo, what were you doing? Like, what was the narrative you were living into, the adventure, the activities? And it's not necessarily like, as an adult, I now also have to do that. So I liked escaping to the back 40 of some piece of land and being on this gigantic adventure and quest. And I would have like this big, story that was going on, and playing make-believe in that. It's not that I need to actually be truly a world traveler right now as my career or sense of purpose, but it does give clues, like what truly lights me up is being in the discovery of something new. And so clues are, just that, they're clues. It's not that one question, like what do you love or what lit you up as a child, is going to give you the lightning bolt, aha, all the answers. You're gathering all of these little pieces of the puzzle and then like sitting with them. And so what do you love? What are you skilled at? And I think that I love that question for giving a nod to, even some of the jobs that maybe you got that you hated, but it made you some money, or it was, what did you learn from that? Like, what skills did you develop that now you can use intentionally in service to something that you would choose for yourself? So what are you skilled at? I think, like, what do you care about? The flip side of that, like, what brings you joy is also kind of like what irritates you, like what really pisses you off in the world or in your industry. Because again, like, that emotion is energy, and you're looking for energy. When you feel nothing, like you're flatlined, like that's not the clue. But when you have like a joy or a spark or a love or deeply passionate, like angry of an injustice, those are clues. And then I might also add, like, the question of what do you not stop thinking about?
Ooh, I love that. What do you not stop thinking about?
It's like people are walking around and they're kind of doing their regular responsibilities, but like, what's the things that like really capture your attention? And you just can't stop thinking about them. Maybe you're daydreaming, or you're journaling, or those are the headlines that you click on. Like, start to notice like the themes and patterns through all of that. So it's tangible enough.
Yes, those are very tangible. And you know what occurs to me? It's not about we want to make this purpose in life because of our, humongous this American dream thing, that we want to change the world. And I am so into, I don't want to change the world. I want to impact my world. And my world is just a handful of people. And if I can make an impression on them, that they feel better about themselves, that my goal always is that after I've had a conversation with somebody, that they feel better about themselves, they feel the conversation was about them, and that they are valuable. And so I think that's another thing that we have to be careful. My purpose is not to change the world, to change all of, everybody that's seeking meaning in life. I'm trying to save them. With me, it's just the ones that get put in my path, and the ones that are interested, and I'm interested in serving those, and that's it. It doesn't have to be this giant, huge thing. There was another question as we ended up here that I really wanted to ask you, and I've gone all over the map on my notes, so I have to go back and check my notes. There was one other one. So, I painted for 7 years, and I did abstract painting, and it was one of the most magnificently expressive opportunities for me to share what was going on inside of me. Now, the paintings wouldn't make sense to anybody, but I have a good eye for composition and a good eye for color, and I can put those together and make them somewhat pleasing. But that really wasn't even the goal. And, there came a day, and I would paint, Lindsay, 7 or more hours a day, and it would feel like I painted for an hour. I was in that flow, that flow state. I was in that flow state, but I got to where I couldn't get any better. I just, all of my paintings started looking the same, started feeling the same, and I realized I'd have to get an education, and I love painting, but I didn't love it that much to start going to school 2 or 3 nights a week and working on it. So, Lindsay, I'm just done. I got rid of all my paints and took them to the disposal that takes care of toxic materials, and got rid of all my paints, my paintbrushes, cleaned up my office. My paint studio was just filled with paint over all the walls. We painted it and cleaned it up, and I'm just done. And you talked to me about there's a time to just be done, and don't be afraid of this American idea that I'm a quitter. There is a time to quit, and there is a time to move on to something new. As T.S. Eliot talks about, every beginning is a new end, and every new end is a new beginning. What do you have to say? Because you had some really wise words to say about quitting, about stopping doing something.
Yeah, I think quitting has so much baggage to it. Nobody wants to be a quitter. Nobody wants to quit. We have bad mojo with that one. And so I think of it as trading. I'm trading. And so I can just be done. And so if purpose is what is meaningful for me to be, what is meaningful for me to express or learn, or what is meaningful for me to contribute. Like your painting, there was something that you were receiving from that, and it was meaningful and it was energizing. It had your attention and energy. I think that's how I would say it. It had your attention and energy. And then whatever that was that you wanted to express or that had your attention and energy, it just, when it came to the next level of commitment or elaboration, labor, we're and I'm going to trade now. And so there's such a graciousness in letting that season or that chapter close, so that you can turn the page onto then what am I where am I putting my energy and attention next? Now there are some people that find an activity or an expression or a contribution that has their energy and attention for decades and decades and decades. And so
right.
They love
the Jane Goodalls.
Yeah, I love being a part of that mastery. And I really resonate with that. But then it's almost like their season of that is still, it's just a bigger, if we look at it as an arc, it's a bigger arc. And so I think when we were talking, it's allowing there to be cycles or seasons where there's a new beginning and all of the interest, and then there's the summer of just being in flow with it. And then there's the natural progression into autumn, which is a dying away and of letting it be done. Sometimes when we start to feel that autumn coming, where it's coming to a close, we resist it. And sometimes we can reconnect with a sense of new beginning. We bring a deeper purpose or a deeper meaning to that same activity. And so we can kind of bypass and go into winter but not quit the activity, or I'll say trade the activity. We stay in for another season. But it's also equally fine because we have lots of things we can put our energy and attention to. It's also equally fine to say, that was awesome, and I'm going to say goodbye now, and I'm going to let it go just as effortlessly as a leaf from a tree, and allow myself to go into a period of winter or incubation.
I love your incubation idea. I think that's critical.
Where on the surface it looks like nothing's happening, right? It looks dead. But actually, winter incubation is such an important time for nature. So much is happening in the root systems and the soils.
But we don't let live ourselves in winters. We especially on the West Coast, since we don't have seasonal differences, it's it's a constant summer. It's a constant go. There is not this period of just let's incubate and let the seeds develop and nurture. That's what's going to come out in spring, and it's going to be a much the same us, but a different us, a new us. You've said to me the most important points of our whole show, that I love this winter and this incubation of new things. And I like the trading.
What you said about.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, that you're trading. You're not quitting. You're trading. With every end is a new beginning, and so this is an end of one thing and a new beginning to another thing. To, keep your interest up and to keep your desire and your passion. And you were going to say something.
Yeah, and if I can even tag on to that briefly, but the trading, you have always the choice. You have the choice to do something else, or you have the choice to infuse a deeper sense of inspiration and purpose, because the project or that completing that project is a part of something greater for you. And then I was going to say, I like what you said around finding your purpose, and it doesn't have to be this big saving of the world thing. That's kind of a configuration of the ego anyways.
Isn't it?
But to find the way of being the change, or really rippling out that meaning into our corner of the world today. And I think that's important on the quest of finding purpose, to realize while you're following the clues, while you're in incubation, just choosing what you want to put your energy and attention to next. Well, in the meantime, just for today, what would be purposeful today? What do you want to live into today? Who do you want to be today?
As we obliquely pay attention.
Yeah, that's a great phrase.
Lindsay Davis, you are incredible. I love having you in the show. Thank you so much for taking time. I know it's time with your family, and I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you.
Well, thank you for having me. You truly do embody your value of making listeners or your guests feel listened to and heard and valued, and I always enjoy my conversations with you, Charlie.
Thanks, Lindsay. Okay, everybody, that's all for today. This is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.